right now.
Yeah.
But you know what? Let's jump over to our first guest, right?
Oh, let's do it.
Let's bring him on up. It's Glenn. It's Glenn Jones. He's the global VP of product strategy over at Bloom Global, and we're going to talk a little bit about eliminating unnecessary carbon emissions from the supply chain. Glenn, thanks for joining us today.
Thanks for having me on the show. I appreciate it, guys. Great show today.
Hey, let's just give a little brief intro here, just set the table. So who are you and who's Bloom Global?
So I'm the VP of product strategy here at Bloom Global. I've been here, 2.5 years. And Bloom provides we're a Silicon Valley-based technology provider. We enable companies to move goods through we specialize in multimodal. So we specialize in ocean, air, rail, and of course road. We support truckload, less than truckload, parcel, pretty much across the board. And we're very focused on, in addition to efficiencies, being able to enable sustainability.
So you mentioned that you guys are focused on efficiencies, right? And Bloom Global contends that there is over $1 trillion of waste in supply chains today. What are the common types of this waste that you see, and how can supply chain technologies solutions help eliminate this waste?
Yeah, so a lot of what you've talked about this morning, it's about vessel emissions, train emissions, planes, trucks. They all emit, at least today, as they grow into the more until they get into the electric modes. These all and so it's about optimizing those moves. It's about selecting the right kind of carriers, the right modes. Reducing empty miles is extremely important. Optimizing routes is extremely important, and then as a technology providers, we really try to focus on transparency. And so, how can we make not only cost transparency and during the carrier selection process, during route selection process, how do you also make the carbon CO2 emissions, and kind of back to your FCI initiatives and bringing those up at the right time?
So how do you feel about, so Biden put out a statement yesterday on the 21st, and he was talking about cutting greenhouse emissions by about 50% by 2030. How do we get there, and where does Bloom fit into that?
So it's extremely important as companies become more aware. It's important that they make choices. So again, today a lot of the choices on carrier selection are made around pure cost, or they're made on cost and on-time performance. And so in order to meet these objectives, they're going to have to take into consideration CO2 emissions. And this is across the big modes. This is across ocean. This is looking at the different types of flights in aircraft and also trains. And every one of these different companies that enable these modes, they do have initiatives in place to reduce CO2 emissions by, of course, the FMC has driven the reduction in ocean through the either scrubbers or the low sulfur fuels. And so but again, it's important as you're going through the process to be able to make sure you're selecting and taking the CO2 emissions into consideration as you're selecting these modes. And that'll go a long ways, until we're able to get more electrical and more fuel efficient systems in place.
Excellent. We talked about route optimization and technology, scrubbers, that type of stuff for this. How else can supply chain stakeholders reduce their carbon emissions? And can Bloom Global help companies measure their carbon emissions and help them reduce it?
Absolutely. Absolutely. So, in the end, you do wind up selecting the mode, you select the carriers. And so once that happens, Bloom and other technology providers need to make it transparent as to what is the CO2 emissions. And so as you're going from, Shenzhen, China to the port of LA or to port of Rotterdam, that vessel makes a track. Every vessel has a different carbon footprint. And so, as that vessel or the truck or the train makes its journey, we do track those emissions and we make those visible back, and that enables our users or our customer base to invest into carbon offset programs. Which, for today, that's the best way that you can kind of combat and address these issues.
Well, let me ask you this. Bloom recently decided to go carbon neutral, right? Why did you make that decision? You're getting on the bandwagon a little bit early. Is there any risk in doing that? And how are you going to get there?
No, we're very focused on that. Our culture here is very much aligned with the economy and the ecology, and so it's a part of, and of course we're not too far from Berkeley around here, and we hire people out of that, and so it's important. We're seeing more and more. The people that we hire, especially in the Bay Area, but I'll just say across the world, they're asking questions like, what is Bloom doing to save the ecology and to invest? And so it's important to us, not only as a company and but also into our recruiting and hiring. And so, what is the risk? It does cost some money, and so we have to invest back into these carbon offset. There's, of course, the COVID. One of the byproducts of it is a lot of people are working remote, and so they're not traveling so much. But that will change over the next year. People will be getting will be getting back on planes. We'll getting people will be driving. Employees will be driving back into work, and so we're tracking that very closely. And we are investing back into carbon offset programs today to have a carbon neutral company.
Excellent, excellent, Glenn. It is very, very important for a company to have a great corporate sustainability narrative and keep that strong. But for our listeners, what can our listeners do to help drive reductions in CO2 emissions caused by the supply chains?
Yeah, I mean, that's again, taking technologies like your FCI into consideration. Using again, we provide back the carbon footprint of the different moves, and then making sure that they invest back into carbon neutral programs, at least until the carrier networks and the suppliers of transportation can automate or put electronic vehicles and other forms into production.
I believe there's a survey as well, right, that Bloom and Freightways are collaborating on, and you want some input. Do you know how they'd go about doing that?
Yeah, the survey is, it should be coming out soon. And so I believe it's going to be an email. I may be wrong on this. And so please respond. It'll go out to a broad, and we'll take those results into consideration as we make plans going forward into our different initiatives and the technology that we provide.
Thank you so much for your time today, Glenn. We really appreciate it, and thanks for doing that great work over at Bloom.
Thanks, guys. Yeah, appreciate it.